What's up, everybody? How are you doing tonight? Today, this morning, because it is 9:46 on a beautiful Tuesday morning that I have off. I am so freaking happy to be here. I am so excited to have a day off of work. I've had two in the last 2 weeks, but they weren't PTO days. This is a PTO day, and I'm loving it. Sitting here with some iced coffee. Okay. We've got some crazy things to talk about today. And a constitutional crisis. We have a constitutional crisis to talk about. I hinted at, sorry, my hair's a little messed up. I literally got out of the shower like 7 minutes ago. So it is still drying, but I'm trying to get it to dry a little bit quicker by, fluffing it up a little bit. What's up, Lily? How you doing? Good morning. Hallelujah. He is risen and we are alive. Oh, I'm happy to be here. I was talking to, Jay and Wicked Virtue were playing Sea of Thieves on Sunday night. I think it was Sunday night. Let me check real quick. I'm pretty sure it was Sunday night. And they were, I was playing something, which is why I wasn't playing with them. Not a big deal. But they were playing Sea of Thieves, and I hopped into Discord for a minute or two in the middle of my live stream and chatted with them. And Jay asked, how's the new job and all that. And man, it almost makes me cry with how happy I am with my new job. Everything just seems to be working perfectly, if I do say so myself. And I'm just I'm blessed for a multitude of reasons. I am blessed that that Jesus died for my sins. Never not be able to be blessed for that. I am blessed that I've got an amazing group of friends, both here on the internet and in real life, that helped and guided me through all of that crap I was dealing with. And I'm about to thank one of them once again. And I am just completely and utterly blessed to be able to sit here, know that work's going to be fine, know that everything's going to be good. I should probably mute my phone. And in the end, we win. Let's fix up the little Henley for a second. Man, what do I look like? Oh, hang on. I have to grab my phone and turn my TV off in my other room because I can hear the Lord of the Rings music. The other thing, I am blessed. So I'm sitting there about 1 a.m. and I needed to go to bed, and I did go to bed, but I didn't go to bed until about 4. Yeah, I didn't go to bed until like 4:30 because my best friend in the world, like he's a minister, so he's either going to be standing up next to me or he's going to be my preacher when I get married, if that ever happens. He texts me and says, let me get it right. Said, just had to call 911 for my son. He's not breathing well. And said, please pray. And the fear that jumped into me for the next 3 hours. Like I was sitting there unable to sleep for 3 hours because of that text. And now he's fine. My nephew is fine because he is basically my nephew. But it was genuinely terrifying, and I'm just blessed to know that everything that happens is his decision. Okay, that's my sad, terrifying intro on the morning. That's terrifying. Let's talk about let's start with this. B-Man says J Raid. Jay, I don't know if you're in here already. I see a whole bunch of people popping in. If Jay, if you're in here and you want to hop on, we're getting ready to talk about Trump's big tweet that he tweeted this morning. Shoot me a message on Twitter or right in here. What's up, everyone? Welcome to the King's Court. If this is your first time here, don't forget to hit that like. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button. We're going to be live again later this week on Thursday for our normal show with videos on Wednesday and Friday. Johnny asks, is that a UCS AT-AT in the background? It is. It is. There's also an Eiffel Tower right there, the Coliseum. But if you want to see the really cool thing that I have, give me just half a second, everybody. You see, last Thursday was my 31st birthday. And a real cool cat of a friend of mine sent me something in the mail. And I thought, you know what? That's really freaking cool. B-Man, shut up. So I got this. It's Sauron's ring, which is pretty cool. But it's a little big for me. But I think it works really well with this, which is what the present was. I'm just bragging about it. I love this thing. I spent all of Thursday or Friday when I got it just holding it. I'm supposed to mount it right here. I don't know if that'll end up happening because I just don't feel like digging into my wall and then having to pay a fee for them to fix it. It is. Sorry, I'm going to pull a J here and just pull it up. It is Isildur. No. It's Aragorn's sword. Technically, Isildur's sword is Narsil. This is Anduril. Okay. Y'all remember about a year ago? Yeah, I'd say a year ago. A year ago, there was a representative from Georgia who was the biggest Trump fan in the world. Her name was Marjorie Taylor Greene. And she seemed to in the last 5 months, she seems to have become, 9 months. I keep forgetting it's April. She seems to have become nuts. Big old TDS syndrome there. And what's funny is, she's a former congresswoman. She's supposed to be somewhat intelligent. She's supposed to be, kind of have an understanding of the law. She sits here after Trump tweeted or Truth Socialed, a whole civilization will die tonight, never to be brought back again. I don't want that to happen, but it probably will. However, now that we have complete and total regime change, where different, smarter, and less radicalized minds prevail, maybe something revolutionarily wonderful can happen. Who knows? We will find out tonight. One of the most important moments in the long and complex history of the world. 47 years of extortion, corruption, and death will finally end. God bless the great people of Iran. Yeah, I'm 100% single guy. Sorry, I was looking at the chat. Yeah, there you go, Rep. Okay, yeah, let's back to this. So, MTG decides to say, tweet 25th Amendment. Not a single bomb is dropped on America. We cannot kill an entire civilization. This is evil and madness. So here's the thing. Okay, I know Trump has said a whole civilization will die tonight. If there's anyone here that actually thinks that Trump will actually just carpet bomb Iran, guys, stop smelling your own farts. Get out, touch grass. That's not what's going to happen. He's already said today is um, bridge and what electricity day, where they're going to knock out all of their infrastructure. That doesn't mean that they're going down to Main Street and dropping bombs on the civilians there. Okay. It also does not mean that no one's going to get hurt. People are going to get hurt. People are going to die. It's the nature of war. But for MTG to sit here and suggest that this is a 25th Amendment issue kind of blows my mind. So, if anyone isn't aware, I would be surprised if you're not. You're all a pretty smart group. But if anyone isn't aware, the 25th Amendment is what basically creates the secession as it exists today. So, the secession in power. So, if enough of the what are they called? If enough of the cabinet says that Donald Trump is not all there, then they can place JD Vance in power. But that what's crazy is that anyone would think JD Vance wouldn't do this as well. I actually think JD Vance would do more than Trump's doing. I mean, JD Vance was actually over there. So he's seen the atrocities firsthand. I don't know. I just think MTG is sitting here trying to build some new brand off of Trump hate. It's what a bunch of these new TDS people are doing. We see it all over Twitter with the conservative podcasters that are now like, you know what? I don't actually think Trump knows what he's doing. Trump's owned by this country or this group of people. And it's like, the very last person I would ever suspect to be owned by anyone is Donald Trump. That guy is the most me person, while also being the most, you know what, let's help you person I've ever seen. Hey, JD Vance is actually trending. Why do we think JD Vance is trending? An hour ago, he said, very shortly, this war will conclude. They've got to know we've got the tools in our toolkit that we so far haven't decided to use. POTUS can decide to use them, and we will decide to use them if the Iranians don't change their course of conduct. So this is the thing. Like, let's talk about what happened over the weekend, okay? So Thursday, I think it was, Thursday, maybe late Thursday here in the U.S., Friday over in Iran, we get an F-15 shot down. Yeah, it's a little embarrassing because Trump had just said that we knocked out all of Iran's air capabilities, anti-air capabilities, all that stuff. So yeah, it's a little embarrassing. Okay, it's kind of funny that it happened like that, but whatever. We then get another F-15 shot down. So we've got, I believe I'm right on that, right? 2 F-15s were shot down. So we've got a pilot and a weapons system operator. Maybe it was just one F-15. But we got a pilot and a weapons system operator lost in Iran. From what I recall, within about half a day, we get one weapon system or one. We find the pilot. We rescue him, and then we spend $100 million, probably $400 million, if we're being honest, and um, multiple destruction of aircraft and all this stuff to rescue that weapon system operator. And from what we can tell, is actually a very impressive operation, because not only did it involve the CIA actually doing good, actually being pro-American, but it also kept the Iranians from having any sort of win. Remember that. What's up, Comics Dad? How you doing? I'm trying. I thought I had bookmarked this stuff, and I think I did, but for some reason, my Twitter doesn't like to keep my bookmarks. Let's see if I can find it real quick. There was someone talking about it. What was his name? Let's try WSO. Oh, okay. Well, this was pretty cool. So we're going to be using a lot of Nick Storter today on this portion. This was apparently video from southwestern Iran where the WSO was hiding, showing civilians and security forces rushing towards the area believed to be where the U.S. military is attempting to rescue the F-18 crew, F-15. Sitting out there trying to find this guy. And what's funny is, they used the CIA to basically get Iran to look over here while they landed everything to get him. And then, of course, blew up two. It wasn't AC-130. It was two. Shit, I don't remember. Anyone remember what the planes were? We blew up two of them, and then we blew up all four of the little birds we had there, so that they couldn't get they couldn't use them to upgrade their air forces. And you got people all over Twitter talking about how, oh, this is such a stupid thing. Why would they spend all this money for one guy? And for a fact that they are left-wing agitators, or they're Nigerian things. Yes, C-130s. Yeah, not AC. They weren't attack planes. Yeah, so the C-130s, according to this thing, says are there need to transport little birds in, and because they couldn't get the C-130. So from what I read, the front landing gear is what got stuck in the dirt, and they couldn't get it out. Now, I saw somebody, it might have been Nick again. Let's see if it was, but someone had a map of Iran. They were showing where the WSO was found, where the landing thing was. But you could kind of tell that basically what America did was they found a nice long strip of road and said, that'll work. And they just went in and landed there. Now, obviously, it didn't really work because we had to blow up planes. But we will do that for our people. And one of the things that I love is I see all of these people reacting to it, saying, "Oh, that's so dumb." And then I see people reacting to that, saying, "This is why you cannot become American just by a slip of a piece of paper, because you don't get it. Being an American is more about than just, oh, say, can you see, and saying the Pledge of Allegiance. It is a literal mindset. Remember, and I've said this before, I've said this on King's Advisor streams, I've said this here, that uh, when our founding fathers were trying to decide what system of government we would set up, what the bird would be, all that kind of stuff, Ben Franklin said that we had created a new race of people here in America, that we had evolved beyond the easy work life that the Europeans had at the time. And I think that is still, in essence, true today. I think the lifeblood of Europe is monarchy. I think one of the biggest mistakes that Europe ever did was getting rid of their monarchies. Look, does it suck when someone can tell you what to do for 60 years? It absolutely does. But it sucks for us because we as Americans are a lot more hard-headed. We're a lot more red-blooded. We run hotter. We don't give as much as Europeans do. And when I say that, what I mean is that we will move heaven and earth for our people. We will move heaven and earth to rescue people. We will do whatever we can because we see that as our mission in the world to help other people. Now, does that mean that we should be the police of the world? Not while we got issues going on at home. But to think that it is a waste of money to rescue an American soldier who, if captured, and let's remember, it's not like he, was down in Sweden where if they find him, they're going to put him up in a 4-star prison with, where he can go out every other Tuesday and get a job and do all this stuff. It's not like that. If Iran had caught him, that man would have been dead in probably about 2 days after they had tortured and brutalized him and filmed it and put it on Al Jazeera. So that's why we do that shit. And for someone to say that it is a waste of money, you don't get it. You just don't understand it. I had another thing I was going to say about it, but I think I've forgotten it, which ain't great. For the Emperor says the weight of the planes were too much for the sand and sank while sitting and got stuck. So we demoed them and used a secondary extraction. Absolutely. Yep. But yeah, we're a different group of people. We are not like our cousins in Europe. There are some really great, incredible things that Europe has given the world. One of them is America. But for us to act like everyone in Europe and the world should be like us, that was a big mistake of the post-war American philosophy. Good old lady says, and what if it was your son stranded? Exactly. Imagine if these people who say that they do not want us to spend this money, imagine if it was their son that was stranded, or their brother, or their father. Jeez. See, okay, let me read this just to make sure that this doesn't say anything bad, and then I'm gonna pull something up. Okay, let's pull this up. Pull this up, Jamie. From Lane Kendall. No idea who this is. He's a Crowder guy because he's got the mug cup in, but I don't know who he is. If your actual takeaway is that Trump is going to commit nuclear genocide against the Iranian people, well, you're a moron. And 100%. Again, if you read this and think Donald Trump's about to drop nukes, you're an idiot. First off, no one's dropping nukes. Okay. Nobody. Kim Jong Un doesn't want that sweat. Can you imagine dropping nukes today? Blows my mind that people think that Donald Trump is a bloodthirsty murderer. Again, the dude has talked about not letting Iran get a nuclear weapon for 15 years now. Well, 13. What is this? I didn't know there was a website. Well, and honestly, Brimstone, you know what's funny about that? I actually think the nuclear bomb was a huge mistake. It's a great deterrent. It really is. But um, now there's nothing there's no way to war without you almost using it now. So this is kind of a weird opinion. I'm gonna 100% grant y'all. Man has been fighting each other for 8,000 years. I mean, the second sin ever committed was murder between Cain and Abel. At least the second documented sin. We've been killing each other for 10,000 years. We've been doing all sorts of shit. And if you go back and look throughout history, now I've only done this through, a 300 or 400 year span of European history. So it quite possibly only works in certain areas. But I feel like uh not being able to just grab your group of villagers, run over and try to take another village now. I feel like that's really kind of messed us up. I don't know. Maybe it's messed Europe up. Maybe now that Europe's all cucked and they're unable to uh, actually express themselves through war, which has been their pastime up until a decade ago. Maybe that's their problem. Let's get into our constitutional crisis. So, anyone here from Kentucky? Jeremy says Trump has talked about Iran not getting a nuclear weapon since 1980. Damn. I didn't know that. Anyone from Kentucky? The bluegrass state. Just waiting to see if someone says yes. All right. So Kentucky is in the middle of a constitutional crisis. They have had a really shocking story going on for the last 2 weeks that I'm really surprised more people aren't talking about. So there was a let me see. Let me try to get like a good explanation of this. Um, okay, so in January of 2026, so this year, a Republican state rep, Killian Timoney, filed a petition calling for the impeachment of Judge Julie Goodman. He focused on 6 cases of Goodman, saying that she abused her judicial discretion and authority, ignoring state statutes, precedent, and showing biases in rulings on sentencing, dismissals, or civil matters. Now, it's important to remember that Timoney is up for re-election this year, apparently in a contentious race, so could just be some sort of, you know, last minute, last ditch effort to appeal to a base. The Republican controlled Kentucky House formed an impeachment committee, held a public hearing on March 16th, where Goodman and her attorneys testified along with others like the Commonwealth's attorney. The committee issued a report recommending impeachment, claiming her actions amounted to misdemeanors in office under the Kentucky Constitution in sections 66 through 68. The full Kentucky House voted 73-14 to approve articles of impeachment along her or against her, along party lines. There was one Republican that said no, there was one Democrat that said yes. The articles accused Goodman of deliberate and repeated pattern of defying state law. From the bench, the resolution moved to the Kentucky Senate, which was set to hold a trial. And then in late March, Goodman started fighting back. She filed motions arguing the impeachment violated the state constitution, particularly the separation of powers. And this is where everything really starts getting murky. So, a senior judge in Kentucky, above Goodman, said that the Kentucky Constitution did not permit. Hang on one second. Yeah, that the Kentucky Constitution did not permit the state legislature to impeach for these purposes. Said that disagreements with decisions and disagreements with actions made on the bench are not an impeachable offense. Goodman appealed directly to the Supreme Court. And in a 5-1 decision on Monday, yesterday, the Kentucky Supreme Court issued a strong opinion written by Chief Justice Deborah Hembree Lambert. The court declared the articles of impeachment void from the start due to legal defects, including issues like the original petition not being properly filed under oath and procedural problems. Ruled the impeachment violated separation of powers. This is the big point here. And this is what's going to be kind of wild to see how it affects different states and even our own federal government. Says the legislature cannot remove a judge simply because it dislikes her rulings, which I am inclined to agree with. This would undermine judicial independence and allow political interference in the courts. I genuinely agree with that. A legislature that elects a judge or appoints a judge or oversees the judicial branch at all should not be able to just decide we don't like what this person is doing as in their job. It's the same stuff with the Trump stuff. The legislature should not be able to impeach Trump simply because they don't like Trump. If Trump is going out or these judges are going out and committing high crimes and misdemeanors, which is the language that our federal constitution uses, and I would assume is close to the language that most state constitutions use, then that's where you start seeing issues with impeaching judges. But the other problem is, okay, so when does political action, when does a judge's political action and interference with the running of the government, when does that go into impeachable offenses? I'll give you an example. There's a federal judge that decided twice last year that he was going to override the Supreme Court. Now, that happens. Okay. There are times that judges say, I think they're wrong. I'm going to reverse, or I'm going to decide the case this way. But when that happens, the precedent that is being used by this, or the precedent that the Supreme Court precedent that they're looking at, is usually 50 years old, not 9 weeks or a week. And if you remember, last year, the Supreme Court ended nationwide injunctions. And then literally a week later, they had to remind everybody, hey, your shit, our decision makes your shit null and void. Stop doing this. If a judge did that multiple times, I would say this grounds for impeachment. If a judge knowingly decides something that they know is not going to work, they should be impeached multiple times, I would say. That one time, you can easily argue, hey, I wasn't sure. This is just what I felt. I get that, okay? And as someone that believes in, redemption and second chances and stuff like that, I'm inclined not to remove someone from a job based on one mistake. But when you start having judges like the DC judge, Buller, Bayara, how do you say his name? The creepy looking Skeletor guy. When you start having judges like that just decide, you know what? No, I want to be president. I don't want this. I want to be president. I'm going to make the decisions. When you start having that, that's when you have a tyranny by the Boasberg. Thank you, Corn Boy. Yeah, that's when you start having a tyranny by the judiciary. Now, the Kentucky Supreme Court's decision yesterday says that they are concerned by a tyranny of the legislature. And you know what? I get it. Let's look at what Benjamin Martin said all those years ago, that an elected legislature can trample your rights just as easily as a king can. But at least we elect our legislature. I mean, I don't remember anyone electing a federal judge. And in most places, you don't elect your judges either. So here in South Carolina, we elect. There is a judge we elect. I can't remember which one it is, but our legislature elects our judges, there is no great way to elect a judge. There really isn't. The biggest problem with the way we do it here in South Carolina is you end up with judges who do not go after the legislature because of that. So we've got a huge. I found out about this last week. The DOJ is investigating the South Carolina legislature, or I think the South Carolina Senate right now, for widespread corruption. And I had no idea. Genuinely didn't. I mean, I wouldn't say things are booming. There's road issues, there's tax issues, but there's nothing that I've seen in my day-to-day that is like, this needs to, no. Like, there's been nothing like that. So I didn't know anything was really terrible. But I know we got a couple of people from South Carolina in here. Maybe they can tell me differently. But it concerns me that we are reaching a point where legislatures are angry at judges because they're deciding cases in a way that the legislature doesn't like. And so now the legislature wants to impeach the judge. But now you've got the Supreme Court ruling that the legislature can't impeach the judge. This is the one that I kind of found surprising. They found that, the Supreme Court in Kentucky found that the impeachment violated Goodman's due process because she wasn't given proper opportunity to defend herself publicly in some aspects of the process. So she doesn't need to defend herself publicly. Okay. For the Emperor says a lot of judges don't have law degree or background and just rule in their personal feelings. You're thinking of magistrate judges or municipal judges. They're two different things. A magistrate judge can sit in like traffic court and they sign certain judicial warrants, but they don't hear cases. You know, if you any judge that hears a case, I cannot think, at least here in South Carolina would be my example. I'm not going to speak to other states, but I can't think of a single judge here that does not hold a law degree. Everyone I know has held a law degree, has practiced both civilly and criminally for multiple years. But I mean, the big problem with magistrate judges is they're used to kind of do the grunt work of the judicial system, where they set bail, they sign warrants, all this stuff, which is why you end up with bails that are insane. We had the one here in South Carolina, here in Columbia, that set a $10,000 bond on a guy that was accused of first degree assault. That's a violent felony. Shouldn't be here. I don't think it should be on the streets. We had another one in the Charlotte, that put like a $7,000 bond on someone that was accused of murder. Like these things are insane. And the whole idea is, this whole idea of like cashless bail and all that stuff was supposed to make the system more equal. That you got a whole bunch of black people in prison because they can't afford bail, while all the white people can, so they don't have to sit in prison. Well, let's be honest about this. Most of the white people that we see getting bail are getting bailed out for DUI and tax evasion and some white collar shit or some low felony shit. Very few of them end up getting bailed out for murder or first degree assault or sexual assault or that awful stuff that involves kids. Like we tried to fix a system that honestly didn't really need fixing. Maybe it needed a little bit of tweaking, but it's sort of like the NFL. Every single year the NFL makes a new rule for safety because they don't want people to get hurt, without waiting to see if the rules they made the year before fix the problem. In like 2008, they had all this stuff about concussions, and they made all these new rules, college as well, and now they keep making a new rule every year that eventually, they're going to eliminate the kickoff soon, that's when you stop watching football. The kickoff is probably one of the most exciting parts. Good old lady says, in Texas, our judges are on the ballot. Most of the time, you still don't know who they are, but it became an issue. We can at least have some options. I agree. That's part of the problem is a lot of us are not, whether we want to be or just don't care. A lot of us are not politically active. We don't know who's running for, city council. We don't know who's on the school board, things like that. I don't know who's on my school board because I don't have kids. If I had kids, I hope I would know who's on my school board and I would vote accordingly and all that stuff. But right now, you've got, and this is part of the reason why, the electorate should not be so vastly different. The same sort of people should be voting. Now, who that same sort is, I happen to think it should be, taxpayers that own property, so that everyone that's voting has a genuine interest in the outcome. The fact that the crazy lady that makes TikTok videos with her chin like this and screams while she's on her way to DoorDash her third order of something, has the same voting power as you and me is just mind-boggling. $73, what's up, man? NC passed the arena's law to put limits on cashless bail, which is great. I don't know if I'm having a that's the chronicler for what's a pin? It's not English pounds. Peruvian euros? Something like that. I don't know. Hail, have a great day. You have a great day too. Yeah, right. So Peruvian pesos, right? Am I right about that? I hope I am. But yeah, so that's what's going on with Kentucky. It's going to be really interesting to see what ends up happening with the souls, is what they're called. Okay, interesting. It's going to be really interesting to see what happens with this whole Kentucky issue, because, like I said, this is the kind of thing that could spread into other states. And if judiciaries try to kind of claim impeachment invulnerability, let's call it, simply because it's from the legislature, I mean, that's the check that the legislature has over the judiciary, is the ability to impeach them. Now, again, I don't think you should be able to impeach a judge just because you don't like their ruling. That's bullshit. But if you can track that to a consistent issue, so let's say you have a magistrate judge that is consistently giving every single black person that appears before them, a $2 bail, while he gives every single white person a $10,000 bail. That is a reason for an impeachment. Absolutely. But you should not be able to impeach just because he said or she said, no, we're not going to allow that into evidence. Like, just because you don't like it doesn't mean it's an impeachable offense. Comic stat for 5. If you receive government assistance, you can't vote. That's how it should be, or else they'll vote the incumbent every time. I mostly agree with that. I think it should be government assistance up to a point. So I'll give you an example. I got laid off on January 2nd. I should not immediately lose my right to vote if I went on to government assistance. Okay. I think if you're on government assistance for, let's say, 7 months, 6 months, 5 months, something, because I think most people can find a job in 4 or 5 months. Some period of time, you get your week of, oh, woe is me, and then you knuckle down and go find a job. Now, some people have a hard time to find a job. Some people want to do everything in this area or something like that. But other than that, yeah, if you're not willing to actually just go work, which is why I'm very lucky that I found the job that I got, because I know myself very well. One of the other attorneys that got laid off with me said that when he got laid off the last time, which was like 11 years prior, that he went and worked at Home Depot for like 3 months. And I was sitting there to myself going, I really hope I don't have to work at Home Depot. And not for any real reason. Not because I think it's below me. Not because I don't think I'd be good at it. Not for any, I just didn't want to. I'm lucky I had the luxury of not wanting to. But if you go beyond a certain period of time, yeah, I just think you should lose your right to vote. Comicstat, thank you so much for that, man. And hey, everyone give Comicstat a round of applause, thumbs up. I'm sure a lot of y'all know that he was going through a tough time last year, but he's beaten it, crushed it, and now he and his wife are killing it over here on YouTube. Sophie, thank you so much for that. So remember, I did a video. Y'all might not remember. Okay, I barely remember. So I did a video 8 months ago, I think, about the judicial review process. And one of the things that, if you have an issue with a judge, basically what you do, and it's a legitimate issue, okay? Basically, what you do is you send in a complaint to the Judicial Commission, and this is going to be, this can kind of vary among states, but it's going to be generally about the same, and that would be a guess of mine. You send in your complaint, it gets reviewed by some clerk, and my guess would be, as long as it doesn't say something along the lines of, this judge ruled against me and I don't like that because now I'm in jail. As long as it lists a legitimate complaint, they kick it up the ladder and eventually get to judges and panels and the reviews and all this kind of stuff. So that's what's going to happen with this judge. Is they're probably going to send these genuine complaints that the legislature has up to be reviewed by the chief judge of the district or something like that. And that, honestly, that's probably what should have happened. Is I think the legislature here has been dangerous in trying to score points with their base. You see, we're sitting here in a time where a lot of people aren't fans of judges. Okay. And look, I get it, but we live in a country where we're lucky we can complain about our judges. We can sit here and say, I'm sitting here on the internet talking about what the impeachment process for a judge should be. There's 3 other countries on the planet I would feel comfortable doing that with, or doing that in. And honestly, 3 might be too much. I don't think I would do that in Australia. I don't think I'd do it in Canada. Maybe the Netherlands, Spain. That might be it. But sure as hell wouldn't do in France or England or Britain right now. But there's a process when you have complaints about the decisions that a judge makes, and that's to send them to the Judicial Commission. That's probably what they should have done here, because now they have also helped create a constitutional crisis that, if it spills over into other states, it's probably going to redefine the power that the legislature has to check the judiciary. And at a time where we're seeing how a runaway judiciary can act, that's a dangerous thing to do. It's one of the reasons why we know that what's his name? Who's the dumbass governor of California? Gavin Newsom. Remember, Gavin Newsom spent the first half of last year suing Donald Trump on a bunch of stuff, and none of it ever made it out of the Court of Appeals because he didn't want the Supreme Court to confirm anything. He didn't want the Supreme Court to make mandates that Trump had. So that's why they never appealed to the Supreme Court. But he lost, I think there's 11 lawsuits. I think he lost 10 of them in the Court of Appeals. The district judge usually fines for Gavin, and then 3 days later, in an emergency appeal, the General Appeals Court fines for Donald Trump, and then Gavin Newsom appeals to the full circuit, and then they fine for Donald Trump again. It's really funny when they do that. So speaking of circuit courts, let's talk about the First Circuit. So I am very sorry to tell all y'all that I'm commiserating with all of y'all because, like y'all, I've also experienced extreme loss in on the lake the other week when I lost all of my pew pews. They all fell, and it's so sad. Um, you know what? I love all the people reacting to Trump's tweet, taking it as seriousness. Guys, y'all are fucking idiots. Um, what was I talking about? Yeah, the First Circuit. So the First Circuit, which is Maine. I'm gonna get this wrong. Maine, Massachusetts, New Hampshire, Puerto Rico, and Rhode Island. It's so funny that Puerto Rico is in there. They uh they had a very interesting decision come out. Anybody know what I'm talking about? I'm gonna tell you that's a no. So there's actually two decisions that the First Circuit Court of Appeals held up or made. One is fucking awesome. The other is complete bullshit. So in one decision, they on March 16th, they lifted a federal judge's order that prevented Trump from allowing for rapid deportation of migrants to countries other than their own without providing them a chance to raise any concern they had for their safety. So if you remember this, about a year ago, one of the big ramp ups that Tom Homan and DHS had for removing illegal aliens from this country was they made a whole bunch of deals with countries across the world to take in the people we didn't want anymore. And one of them, I think Ethiopia was one. I think what's that? The one of the Congos was one. Ecuador was one. All these different countries. And what they weren't allowing was they weren't allowing the people, the aliens, to say whether or not it was safe for them to go there. They were just like, "No, you're going." Well, a federal judge said, "No, you can't do that. You can't prevent them from, you know, disagreeing with where you're going to send them," which is kind of bullshit. Well, the First Circuit said, "No, you absolutely can't," because clearly they're going to lie. So that was a great decision. Super, super big fan of that one. But then last week, I think it was, they decided that that Maine's 72-hour gun rule, which that means is that Maine has a window. You go to Acme Gun LLC, you buy a gun, you must wait 72 hours before being able to pick up that gun. Maine passed that law, I think, a year ago, probably in the 2025 elections, I'm guessing. And the First Circuit said, absolutely, because it does not actually interfere with the right to keep and bear, which is complete bullshit. If your law prevents me from walking into a store, buying the gun, and walking out with it, then it infringes on my right to keep and bear arms. It is that simple. the fact that the First Circuit, and see, this was kind of funny is, a circuit will make a decision, and they make that as part of the reason they make that decision is because they're pretty sure that decision will, stand. That the Supreme Court, and that the level above it, but the level above the First Circuit is the Supreme Court. Um, they make that decision saying, "Hey, I know for a fact that this decision will stand." No way in hell is this Supreme Court gonna uphold that decision. Like GOA, was it Gun Owners of America, whatever it's called, will absolutely turn appeal to the Supreme Court, and that'll be gone. Like that'll be a now they're already hearing. I mean, it's going to end up being an October 2026 decision or oral arguments most likely, but I hope Thomas writes that opinion. That'll be fun. The sheriff says so they should have no argument against voter ID then, right? They shouldn't, but they will. It is Tuesday. Let's see if we got any if we got that new VCR decision yet. What's his name? No, I don't want to go to his blog. Um, where are we going? Trump v. Slaughter. Argued December. So this decision should be coming soon as well. So, a lot of people are talking about how Alito is the only one that hasn't authored an opinion yet. So that probably means that the court is poised to strike down voting maps based on race, which is a good thing. But they're also not talking about how they have not decided Trump v. Slaughter yet. Trump v. Slaughter is the Supreme Court case that argues whether or not Humphrey's executor is wrong. Humphrey's executor is the one that says independent agencies that have statutory reasons why you could fire senior people of that agency. You can only fire them for that reason. You cannot fire them for any other reason. So, because Trump fired Slaughter, a member of the FTC, Slaughter sued saying you don't have the right under Humphreys. He said, I don't give a shit. The reason this is the bigger deal is because this is the case that will decide whether or not Trump can clear house at the Federal Reserve, which would be awesome. Can you imagine if we could get 10 people in the Federal Reserve leadership that are, the governors of the Federal Reserve that are all pro business, pro growth, pro economy, and then maybe we can get rid of the Federal Reserve. Well, let's see. There are people claiming that Iran has closed all diplomatic channels of communication with the U.S. I just don't believe that. Trying to see if there's any other news to go over. Anyone got any questions? Anybody? Bozeburg will have to age out to be gone. Yeah, I think. Oh my god. So, do you think when all these people, when we get like, what's up, Clyde? Do you think when we get a deal announcement in 7 hours, do you think all these people um will come out and say, "Hey, we were wrong, sorry"? Sheriff says, "I just served on a jury. Why can't jurors ask questions?" What do you mean? You mean like in the middle of the case? Because jurors are stupid. You might not be stupid, but jurors are. So the reason you can't ask questions in the middle of a jury or the middle of a trial is A, because your thoughts, that's not what we're not here to litigate or explain something about the way that you think. We're here to give you the facts of a case. After we have given you the facts, when you're in the room, that's when you're allowed to ask questions. So y'all, you could have definitely asked a question. There's just a proper time and place to ask those questions. Um, you probably could have even, you know, depending on where you are and stuff like that, you probably could have handed the bailiff a question and said, "Hey, I'm just curious about something. When's the proper time for us to ask questions?" The bailiff might have said you don't get to ask questions, but yeah, deliberation, that's exactly when you would have asked a question. What's this about Washington State having a board that can remove sheriffs? I heard about this. Apparently, the Washington legislature voted to create some board that allows them to remove a sheriff they don't like. That blows my mind because sheriffs are supposed to be, and this is so the way the world and the country operated 150 years ago. It's interesting because people try to use it to uh get out of things. So they'll sit there, and you see this a lot with oh, who are the crazy I'm traveling people, sovereign citizens. You see this a lot with Moorish Israelites. They try to use things about like sheriffs and uh all these other things that just aren't the way the world and the country work anymore. Um, so the sheriff is supposed to be the chief law enforcement officer of the county. And part of his job is basically to make sure that the law is followed in the county. Now, we had a string of terrible sheriffs around the country in like, I don't know, the 30s and through the 50s. And a lot of areas decided to kind of cuck their sheriffs a little bit. So sheriffs in general are still pretty powerful people. They still get to decide things. They still, police and all that kind of stuff. But there's a little less that they can do now. Um, but apparently Washington doesn't like their conservative sheriffs because there are uh there's I think there's 7 counties in Washington, in the state of Washington, that have extremely conservative uh populations, and their sheriffs, who are the chief law enforcement officer of that county, are able to basically set policy. And those sheriffs have been working with ICE. They've been working with DHS. They've been doing all this stuff, as they should be across the country. And that now it appears Washington doesn't like that. And they want to be able to remove those sheriffs, even though the people of the county voted for those sheriffs. Um, I the very first time this happens, the court, I mean, within a day, the court will strike that law down. But yeah, I mean, that I don't know if the commission has been created yet, but once standing exists and just disability exists, I don't see that commission lasting much longer than that. That Mitch holy shit. Oh, that's really neat. Well, guys, I think King's practicing his J silence. Um, from Polymarket, senior U.S. officials describe current talks with Iran as positive. Says breakthrough could come today. See that? So I think it was last night. Um, there were accounts that were publishing the opinions, or not the opinions, the 10 points that Iran presented. Um, and let's see, so I think it was 10 points. Like six of them, I think we would have agreed with. There were four. One of them was that we promised never to attack again. Well, we're not going to make that promise. One of them was they can they get a $2 million fee for every boat. Well, I think that's crazy. Um, I don't. I'm shocked to hear they don't have a fee to begin with. But 2 million per boat is insane. Like surely there's a fee to transverse the Panama Canal, right? I am loving this. We're kicking out the sons and daughters of these government officials over there that don't like us. Huh. Yep, I think that's going to be about it. We should never let them in to begin with. Well, yeah, I think it's crazy that there's so many people that just are here and just get to do whatever the hell they want. God, all these people, like, I mean, I don't know if Tim Pool is just being idealistic, but you got so many people that are just sitting here saying Trump's lost his way, doesn't know what he's talking about, and it's like every single time they just prove to be wrong. They're really damaging their brands, I think. Oh, I will tell y'all though, if I have to pay $100 for a tank of gas one more time, I'm going to be pretty fucking pissed. All right, guys, I think that's going to be it. Kid hybrid, fuck you. Let's see. Is Tabitha still alive? Redirect. Hey, Marianne. Nah, she's not live anymore. She stopped. Okay. Well, go say hello to Geeks and Gamers. It's Tuesday, so it's what? Ryan and Jay, right? Go say hello. Hope you all have a great night. Great day. It's not even it's just 11 a.m. You have a great time. We're gonna be live on Kings Advisors playing some more Crimson Desert later this afternoon. Do not forget, do not go deeply into that good night. Do not black pill. There's good in this world. Christ has risen. We will win in the end. Do not allow yourself to be upset at the way stuff is going. We are above this world. Remember, God is good all the time. Peace out.